There is no struggle too vast, no odds too overwhelming. For even should we fail, should we fall, we will know that we have lived.
Hello, and welcome to Legendarium Greenhue's Malazan series. Welcome to the final episode of Toll the Hounds by Stephen Erikson. I am Hurinfan, and I am joined today by Befuddled Panda.
Hello.
And Ashaman.
Hello.
Again, this episode, unfortunately, Janeth will not be with us, but hopefully he'll join us for our spoilers talk and hopefully talk to Steve and Dust of Dreams. So, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
Ish?
I thought it had stopped snowing in Ottawa, but like an hour ago we got hit by a sudden flurry. But things are slowly melting, which is nice. We've had, I think the final total is something like 3.3 meters, which for Americans is like over 10 feet.
That is a lot.
Yep.
Wow. It is currently sunny and quite warm in Seattle, so I'm
very
sorry.
jealous. Let's see. Sakura season's starting.
Yes, we have.
They've already started to bloom.
Yeah.
So we wanted to go to Tokyo this week with my little one, see Sakura for the first time.
Will he know?
No, absolutely not.
It's in his blood. He'll just recognize it, you know.
It's in his blood.
Yeah. I got nothing else. So we're gonna cover chapter. I'm sorry. I'm very sleep deprived. I'm not gonna be on my A game today. We're covering book 4 of Toll the Hounds. So it's what, 19 through 24, or is it 20 through 24?
19 through 24. Yep, and the epilogue.
So shall we start?
Yes. Chapter 19. Benisk and Harlow flee the mines ahead of Venaz, but Benisk dies in the attempt. Blend pays Barathal's fine. The patrons of the Phoenix Inn find out about Murillo. Cutter sets off after Viticus, not because Chalice asked him to.
Definitely not.
So, Huron, how much did you cry in this chapter this time?
Oh, so much. Like I told you last episode that like Murillo dying, like I'm sad, but like it doesn't really get me. What really gets me is just how absolutely devastated everyone is, especially Irilta. Because like we get little vignettes, not the right word, but we get little reactions from everybody responding. And Cole, he wants to drink again, but they're trying to protect him from it. And Mies has her thing, and Krupp's just like devastated. But Irilta, she breaks down, and then she eventually just kills herself because like there was an unrequited love there, and that's just that was hard for me. And is this is also the chapter where Banis dies?
Yes.
Oh, that was so rough. Oh man, like the poor kid, man. Like he's just such a good kid, and he made friends with this kid who's so much younger than him, and all he wants to see is this beautiful city. And Harlow's such a good kid, and he talks to him about the city. Oh, I love it.
And Benisk tries so hard to keep Harlow along, right? Like all the little things he does as they flee, like keeping him motivated, keeping him moving, things like that. And then we find out later that he actually wouldn't have been able to escape that way anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, better, I guess, that he died the way he did rather than another way, I guess.
Bellum could have come earlier.
Well, he tried.
Well, yeah, so that one, more than any of the major deaths in this book, I think Banisk's was the one that hit me the hardest.
I think it is bittersweet because he died dreaming and thinking about this city that doesn't actually exist. And if he did make it, and then he did make it to Darujistan and saw what became of the city, like
I mean, that's why a lot of people don't have kids, right?
Yeah.
And as he's describing the city to him one last time, Harlow is really just talking about how he wants his mom to be to him.
Yeah.
And how his relationship with his foster parents, and how he was just trying to work so hard so that they would love him, even just a little bit, and he was always coming up short.
The last thing Harlow says to him, in this city there are mothers, and that's when Benisk dies.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, oh my goodness. Well, this chapter was just honestly incredible. And just so many fantastic lines about love and grief, mostly about grief, but without love there is no grief. And the motif of several times in the chapter, they said, there is no greater anguish than to take a breath that begins with love and ends with grief. Yeah, each time was just very powerful.
Mm-hmm. And I actually quite liked Cutter's sections in this chapter, because he's so conflicted about what to do with Gorlas Viticus, and Chalice is really trying to convince him to kill him. And I think he decides that he's just going to get away, right, before he hears about Murillo, and then immediately as he does, he just goes after him. And Krupp is so sad because he's trying to prevent everyone from being self-destructive, and he can't, basically. Like, as soon as Cutter walks in, he knows it's going to go this way, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. And, maybe Cutter's going to die. Yeah.
This is the chapter that he actually kills him?
No.
No.
This is the
Okay.
chapter he decides to go kill.
Right.
Yeah. He
Which is
basically
quite
walks into the
satisfying.
Phoenix Den and hears that Murillo's dead, and he's like, well, I guess I'm going to go kill Gorlas
Yeah.
Viticus.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, and then, Rallick comes in very shortly after, and
Right.
would have done the same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that I really noticed in this book is just like, because the narration is very obvious, like somebody is telling the story to you, the reader, and they're like, there's quite a few times where the narrator says, this could have happened, but instead this happened, or like if the timing of blah 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 were such that then this would have been a flip situation. And this was one of them where it's like, okay, if Rallick had been the one to first hear of it and then he went, like, what would have happened? Like,
I think
everything
Viticus
else
would have
that would
been
have happened.
Viticus knows Rallick, so yeah, he'd probably have been a lot more political with how he handled the thing instead of just like so arrogant.
Yeah, I think it would have
Absolutely.
been more similar to what happened with Murillo, but because he didn't know Cutter and Cutter was like baiting him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about that later.
Yeah, okay.
I also like how Krupp seems to be structuring the story in such a way that so he's showing all the bad stuff, but he makes sure not to linger on it too much. He frequently says, we're going to leave them there for now, and we're going to move on to this other section of the story. But here's a small words of wisdom to take solace in, basically.
That's a good point, because Krupp's narration does help with the pacing a bit, and those parts are fine. But when it's not really in a narration kind of style, I gotta say things like linger, things get drawn out, and I just end up like, I have to say, like, I don't love this book. It was a bit of a disappointment finishing this book, and part of it is like for the first time reading it, I want to know what happened, and like there's so much in the way of me finding out what happens in this book that I'm just like getting really impatient, and I end up skimming all these like long diatribes.
I think that's a common criticism of Toll the Hounds.
I think rereading it, I would appreciate it more, but yeah, the first read, it's quite rough.
Yeah. Huron, you didn't even like the first time, right? Or it wasn't your favorite?
No, it was immediately my favorite.
Oh, it was? Okay. Oh, odd. It wasn't my favorite this time. It was probably my least favorite the first time I read it. But I appreciate it much more this time.
I think it's the best thing I think I've ever read. And the first time I read it, it was incredible. And then I think I like it more every time I read it.
I mean, I think like this one is it does feel a bit more personal. I mean, given, what we know of like why he wrote it and how he wrote it. But I guess like reading it as like a story where there's like all of these major threads and like all these characters are like, okay, what's happening? Why are they coming together? Like, what's this big plan? How are they going to fight the dying god? And how are they going to fight chaos? Like, all of these, like, more the fantasy story elements are what I wanted to read, and those are the elements that were just like more sprinkled throughout, especially this like last book 4 of this book, and the personal things, the like very contemplative parts were just keeping me from those elements. So anyway,
I think that's fair. I share the criticism to some degree. I'm not sure how much, but to some degree. Do we have anything? Well, okay. I guess we should talk about Barathol. That was it's kind of a funny sequence when he's in the jail, and then
No, that's no, we can't talk about that. That's boring character stuff.
okay, that is not.
this is totally
Thanks.
plot because he's saying, "Oh, my problems are actually totally fixed now. All I have to do is pay off this fine, and then the indentured servitude that I have to do for a
Right.
bit is going to let me get my blacksmith's license."
That was funny.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like it was gonna be like 6 months, I think, even so, not even that long.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Like that was like a moment of levity and a moment of like, oh, things might actually turn out really well for Barathol. He's gonna get what he wants. And then everything else that happens afterwards, you're just like, well,
I think he's still better off at the end of the book than he is in this section, for the
I mean,
most part.
yes,
He's got a yeah.
sort of.
I
Well, I mean, he also loses Char, but
kind of.
Sort of, yeah, sort of.
I mean, Char's still alive.
well, I guess they're gonna eventually find a healer, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I think
yeah,
just
I
by
mean,
going into the Azath, you kind of get healed, right? I mean, that's what happened to
you
Nom and
can get healed. Like it takes like a long time though, as far as I can tell. Right?
yeah, it took Nom's years.
And Killam, obviously, we haven't seen him since he was thrown into the Azathos.
That's true.
Will we
Anyway.
ever?
Well, in any case, Char has raced to look after him now, so I think they'd make a great team. Shall we move on to chapter 20?
Sure.
Chapter 20. Nimander tells his companions of his intentions regarding Clip. Monkrat goes for a drink with Spindle. Samardev rides with Karsa. Draconis entreats Ditch to hold on. Cartographer provides a new gate for the Trade Guild.
I know. I'm trying to find all the fantasy stuff that's interesting to talk about.
I wasn't expecting to see Spindle again in this book.
I never expect Spindle to show up.
I wish he was introduced earlier because I really like all of his. I really like all of his stuff with Monkrat because Monkrat's a real POS, right? But I don't know, kind of Spindle. Well, we could talk about that at the end because what
Yeah,
he
that's
does with
more at the
Monkrat is
end.
kind of like the point of the whole, book. I think honestly, it kind of seems unimportant, but Spindle and Monkrat's story was quite thematically cohesive.
Resonant.
Yeah.
I also really like how initially Monkrat thinks of Spindle as a 3-legged dog chasing a rabbit.
Yeah.
But through their conversation, he realizes, no, actually, Spindle's kind of a badass. And his worldview, even if Monkrat isn't able to share it yet, is really important. He's really lost a lot with his cynicism and his willingness to just let things happen. Even if he wouldn't be able to affect things in a huge way either way. And they don't have like a huge effect on what happens, but they are able to make the world a better place, even if it's just in a small way, which is really nice, I think.
I agree.
Gotta think about it.
What was one thing that stood out to me was when Spindle was talking with Monkrat and Spindle mentioned Duiker. He's like, yeah, Duiker was on the chain of dogs, and like I think Monkrat's like, oh God, and he does a gesture. Fenrir's blessing. People continue to be surprised at Nimander and how awesome he is, and finding faith in his leadership. That just keeps happening through the whole book.
I think the
Nimander's
thing
great.
with Nimander is like there's a lot of telling of like, oh, and he says this thing and he does this thing, and then like there's a lot of telling of the other people's reactions to him. Whereas I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll just take your word for it. Like, oh, that's like so amazing what Nimander just said or did.
It was amazing because of what he did.
I definitely think he could have done a lot more at the end of this book to justify how people are thinking of him. Because
like literally every single conversation that Namander has with the people below him are like incredible. You two are wrong. Like in the way that Namander saves the day with the dying god and Clip at the end and sacrificing himself, that was great.
Like he kind of saves, like it to me it feels mostly like he was there while Mother Dark and Animander saved the day. You know? And to be fair, he was comforting Mother Dark, I guess, with his presence. But what I get after this book with Namander is he does seem like a good guy, and I can see him being a good leader, but I haven't really been shown that he is a good leader.
You mean by leading these people really well?
Like
we haven't been shown that he's been a good leader. You're right. Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so what does he do to lead the in
He leads
their
by
attempt?
example. Like literally every single time that he has an interaction with anybody following him, they have a problem. He solves their problem usually with taking action or giving them comfort or showing them like that he feels the same way that they do, but that he's still making through it. He serves as like just like Animander does to the rest of the Andy. He serves as like an example for how they should live or how they should act or how they should think.
I think it's Amander's like leadership is it's more passive and it's not really proactive. He's not thinking like, "Oh, I should say this because this will inspire these people." Like
That's exactly what Animander does.
no, like I think Animander is harder because we don't actually get his monologue, like his internal thoughts and we talked about this before. It's like it's Steve said that he probably just wouldn't even be able to because I mean, I guess it's because it's so complex in terms of and so nuanced in terms of what's going on in his head. And it would probably give a lot of things away in terms of the plot. But like with Namander, we see a lot of his self-doubt, his motivations and thinking and how he arrives at a decision. And so we see all of that and we see that it's not very, he's not like, I want to lead these people. It's just, he doesn't even understand why other people hold him in such high regard. Right. And that's why I'm saying
Just like
his like,
Animander.
well, sure. But Animander is also like super powerful and like we've seen and been shown like how powerful he is. And like, I don't think Namander and Animander are quite like comparable. Part of it is like Namander is still really young and he still has a ways to go to like I mean now he has like really big shoes to fill with Animander gone. But like we've seen the power of Animander. With Namander, it's like we're experiencing him growing to become something that could be like Animander.
I agree. I think probably the thing that separates Animander from Nimander is just Animander does so many cool things, and Nimander he kind of like he doesn't do anything cool in this book really. Like he fails in a lot of his objectives, right? Like one of his goals is to protect the rest of his Andy companions, and like Kedivus dies, and Nananda gets wounded, and Clip gets away, and he has to go after him alone, and until Aranatha finds him. And even when he does confront Clip at the end, it's mostly Mother Dark doing the work. So I think that there could have been a little more done to show, like in an action sense, the potential of Nimander.
What you mean, like running into and he saved the builder by sacrificing himself and staying outside the building despite.
Yeah, that's actually a really good example of something that he does do that's positive and
Or
self-sacrificing
chasing
and stuff
after
like
the after
Well,
the dying god, despite not knowing what's going to happen and knowing that he might die in the process.
so the thing is, and like, I don't think we're gonna agree on this character. We talked about the whole builder thing before, and the logic of that was just to me was not quite sound. But regardless, yes, he was very sacrificial in that scene. The whole chasing of the dying god, like I don't see that as him being like super brave. I think he was just like, I gotta go stop Clip. I gotta go be there to protect Animander.
Yeah, not brave.
No, I'm not saying that that's like not brave necessarily. It's like
You just
the
said it wasn't.
It's not the way that you were saying it, where it's like, I don't know, what the dying god's gonna do, but I'm gonna be there. It's like his motivation is more selfish. It's like, I gotta go and like do my part to protect Animander, which, by the way, like,
I have to do this thing for somebody else. That's selfish?
is selfish for himself in that like he feels like he has. I don't quite understand why like he thinks that he can actually save Animander when Animander is so much more powerful than him. That's the kind of selfishness I'm talking about. Like, it's a bit more like what is he gonna do? What does he think he can do?
Exactly. That's why it's so powerful. Like, you don't know what you can do, so you're going to do what you can.
So I agree that he is brave, but to me, these actions don't set him very much apart from like the other heroes of the story, right? Like Cutter is willing to face down the Hounds of Light until he ends up not having to. The dead in Dragnipur are willing to sacrifice their existence to fight chaos, even though they don't have to. So to me, it feels like there needs to be a bit more justification on why the Andy have put him in Animander's stead. Basically, they've raised him up, and now he's the new Animander.
Yeah, and also he ran after Clip because he saw Nananda starting to run after and like about to take out his sword, and he was trying to save Nananda or like
I
prevent.
think the Andy are going to follow Namander because he's literally been supported and been watched by Mother Dark this entire time, and she knows his character.
To me,
I
that's
agree
not
with
very.
you both completely. He's proven himself through this entire book.
To me, that was not very well conveyed. And I mean, part of it is like I wasn't that interested in his parts, so I probably missed a lot. And if I reread this, like I'll pick up a lot more and feel the same way. Upon my first read through, like he's just not a character that I quite understand this whole like admiration for. So I probably should move on to other topics.
Agreed.
Dracon. I always get kind of pissed at Draconis in this
Yeah.
section. Yeah,
Why is
because he goes to Ditch and he's like, "All right, Ditch, you got to hold on, man. You gotta keep yourself together. You gotta. Kataspala is kind of crazy."
It's not that I just broke your neck or anything.
Exactly, like Draconis, like the audacity of him to ask anything of Ditch at this point, right? Like
That's a good point.
someone cripples you, plans to use you, and then when his plans are gonna go away, they're gonna go wrong without you. He needs to come over, and he doesn't even like say please. It's not even like, hey, sorry, this is necessary for this reason or whatever. He's just like, all right, Ditch.
Does Draconis know? Because like he does recognize that Calapatus, whatever.
Kataspala.
I want to call him Kaleidoscope, but that's not his name. Does he recognizes that he's making Ditch into this god? But does he know what the motivation for it is? That like, oh, he wants him to kill Animander.
So the idea behind this god made out of the bodies in the wagon is that they would be like the kind of like the last hurrah against chaos, but Kataspala sabotaged the process basically.
Okay.
And
Right.
kind of engineered the god to kill Animander instead.
Okay. But so Draconis didn't know that part.
Draconis didn't know that, no. But I think he kind of sort of suspected, I think, which is why he's talking to Ditch in this spot.
I see.
But yeah.
I am like curious to see what happens, like what Draconis is like after this book, because we know he is like pretty powerful. He created Dragnipur, but like so far, the scenes that we've seen him in, it's not been much. He's kind of just like an asshole.
Yep. Yeah, Draconis is he's an interesting character. And he gets more interesting in Karkness, but I think from here on out he's a compelling character just in the Book of the Fallen as his own right.
Okay.
I really like Draconis. That's all I'll say.
Do we have anything to say about any of the trade guild sections? I don't know if I do. It kind of like fizzles out in this book, in my opinion.
Not until later.
I did think it was like really interesting how Cartographer basically provided them an out. And it was a little suspicious, like, okay, what? I mean, he lived up to his name. He drew a map.
Mhm.
And it's like, where are you taking them? I was very curious, like what path they were going to take and where they would end up. So,
Straight to Dragnipur.
which, okay, like, has that always been possible?
What?
The Trigil Guild could just like go in to Dragnipur and go out.
Well, they didn't know the way there before.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
I get. Go ahead.
I imagine that if they knew the gateway, like Cartographer shows them, then they could have.
Okay.
But also, they probably wouldn't want to.
Also, I don't know if they actually got in there through like Dragnipur itself. They probably took the same loophole that the rest of the Army of the Dead took.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, okay. Which is what exactly? Like,
Well, I mean, if Hood is in Dragnipur, I mean, I think it makes sense that he could have access to his warren there. Yeah. Which,
oh, okay. So maybe they can't just go there. It had to be that Hood was in Dragnipur in order for that path to be open to them,
Yeah, it's very possible.
right? And
I think so. Yeah.
okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Should we go to chapter 21?
Suppose.
Chapter 21. Cutter deals with Viticus. Shardan Lim tells Chalice the bad news. The Hounds arrive in Darujistan. Spite and Envy have a sisterly spat. Vorkin eliminates her assassin rivals. Harlow is rescued from Venaz. Hannah Orr is murked by Gaz. Thordy summons Hood, who is decapitated by Animander.
Okay, can we just get that out of the way? The decapitation.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No. Although I do have to say, when I was reading it, I was like, wait, what just happened? But it wasn't like a total, oh my God, what just happened? Like, it wasn't a total shock. I guess probably because at this point in the series, I'm like, all right, anything is possible. Like, I mean, I also didn't expect Animander to die, but then it got to the point where it's like once I realized, okay, the plan is that the Hood has to get into Dragnipur, and this whole fight between Dasamultor and Animander later is like, well, maybe Rake also needs to go into Dragnipur to be able to stop, this whole chaos thing there. So it became less shocking. But other things about Hood was interesting that I was not expecting, like him being a jackhood. I was like, what?
You've seen him before.
Yes.
Do
I
you remember
have.
in? Yeah, I think it was either Reaper's Gale or Bone Hunters, but they find the Throne of Ice and they find
Oh
a dead
yeah.
Jaghut on it. Yeah,
Oh really?
that was Hood. Yeah, and in fact, I think they go below the Throne of Ice later on, and I think later on, Hedge says something like "Hood above," and
Oh,
Quick Vince says, "Oh yes, Hood above."
interesting. Okay, I'll have to catch that on a reread. Huh.
So, yeah.
Well, that makes it even more interesting, right? Because there was this whole, I can't remember who told us about the whole. Oh yeah, told us Shorn,
Yeah.
Tula Shorn, yeah.
like
Tells
telling us
the
about the
war.
Jackhoods, yeah, fighting death.
Yep.
So
Their war
was
against
that
death.
like them actually fighting that Jackhood who became Hood, or no?
I don't want to say anything.
Oh, okay. Or maybe
Okay.
they did beat death, and that's how he became Hood.
So Tulis Shorn said that they found victory in the heart of defeat.
Yes.
So
Yes, that's what
correct.
he said.
You could. What do you think?
I think they basically that Jackhood sacrificed himself somehow to overcome death, and then in doing so he became Hood. But he had to die. So
I really like his last word.
And technically, like, they didn't really defeat death because death still is a thing. And he
Mhm.
just became the gatekeeper. Anyway, okay.
I really liked his last words to Animander. It says, I have reconsidered right before getting his head chopped off.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
even if he did, like, change his mind, like, he didn't want Animander to kill him all of a sudden, it seems unlikely. But I just love how Animander just has no time for this. He's like, nope,
He
we're
was like,
doing
we're
this.
on a schedule here.
Yeah,
I think he's
Time to
just
get your
used to
head chopped off.
Jack Hut humor.
maybe. And I really like the time when Animander is just like, he's just crushed under the weight of Dragnipur.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
like it's very good showing you like how enormous the burden has become on him, and obviously it's a lot bigger with Hood and all of the dead in the universe in Dragnipur. But Animander's a badass.
I'm sure Namander
Yeah.
could handle it.
I don't think Namander. I think Namander would get crushed into a fine red paste.
So
Um,
how did you like
mhm.
the ending of Gaz's story?
I was not expecting his wife to like just so coldly slit his throat like that. But I really did enjoy him taking out a newt ore, like thinking that Hanut was just a regular drunk, and then later on it's like, oh shit.
I messed up. He's freaking out. I gotta go home.
Yeah.
I really liked the detective, the city guard that was following the whole story, and he was kind of
Yeah.
struggling with chest pains.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was really satisfying.
Yeah, I mean he's the real highlight of the book for me. You like the Ox, I like Random Guard number 75.
Oh, I forgot. The Ox had a really good line or a really good thought in the last chapter.
Can the ox have thoughts? Really?
Yeah, he's had thoughts the whole book.
The same way as
Uh-huh.
Char, you know?
At the very least, Krupp gives him thoughts.
Which means they're Krupp's thoughts.
Yeah. My favorite moment of the book is when Hood decides that just this one time he's going to have his way, and then he's going
Yeah,
to save this guy who's not even an important guy, right? Like
right.
this did not alter the events at Darujistan at all, basically.
Yeah, he didn't even have a name, did he?
No, I don't think
No.
so. He was just like kind of just like a pure guy who was just trying to do his job and didn't want greatness for himself. And
Yeah.
Hood decided, like, even though he's been worn down by thousands of years of death and hopeless causes and all of the churn of life, like he's gonna care this time, and he's gonna go against his own nature, and he's gonna stop him from dying. And then he walks through the rest of Darujistan, and we get that amazing sequence, which I think is the highlight of the book.
Yeah, I've read that section like 5 times, maybe more. Outside book, just all these stories of the cockroach dancer and the guy who died by hanging himself by masturbating, or
That was so bizarre.
like it's so good. It's good every time. It's funny. It's heartbreaking in places.
Yeah.
It's filled with love and grief. It's really good.
I mean, it did a really good job illustrating that, death it doesn't care who you are. There is no like bias, right? It's gonna happen to anyone and everyone. So
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the Hood's walk is kind of mirrored by Animander's walk. He draws Dragnipur, and Dragnipur does all these cool things with the chains in the streets, and there's like everyone in Darujistan is like experiencing incredible psychic pain, I think. Except for, I guess, Cutter. I don't know, but
I think that bit about like just unimportant characters and how important they are, even though you might not want to read about them, Panda. It like was with what was
I
it?
did read them, okay?
yeah, she just doesn't want to read about Namander.
Those weren't the parts that I was complaining about.
Well, I thought you said that you didn't care about like the mundane stuff, and all you cared about was the fantasy stuff.
That's not what I said. I said that there were a lot of like basically internal diatribes that I wasn't as into.
Nonetheless, my brain is not working. Okay, so Crocus comes there. Crocus comes to kill Viticus, and Viticus is like, "Whoa, that guy I killed, was he really that important?" Or the Harlow. "Oh, Harlow, was he really that important?" And Crocus just says, "No, really, he really wasn't that important. He was just a boy that nobody loved." And then it was the foreman, and he says, "I think most of them are here." And I think that's something that Steve has done continually through the books, like through either showing like unimportant people or people who are not special in the traditional sense, and giving us their perspectives, like even before maybe they die, or showing like the little everyday things that they might have courage to do.
Mhm.
And I think the end of this book is especially powerful in that way. Like
He's really
even
good
the
at
ox, the ox.
he's really good at making them vibrant. I find, like the guy who moved out into the plains in the middle of nowhere, hoping to strike it rich.
Oh
That was
yeah, and
great.
he's like lost
He
like
just-
3 wives or
and he has a
all
two-legged
his
dog.
children left, and
The two legs.
yeah.
Do you think the dog runs with 2 right legs or 2 left legs or 2 back legs?
I think it's two
Or 2
front
front
legs.
legs.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but if it's, I've seen dogs with 2 back legs walk. I think I've seen cat. I think I've seen a couple of cats with 2 back legs walk. They just kind of do it like velociraptors. It's adorable.
Aw.
So I would definitely keep this 2-legged dog myself too. Unfortunately, it's just not very good at catching rats, which is why he got it.
Mhm.
But back to my point about the unimportant people, as a motif that's come up along through the series is witness, right?
Mhm.
And like before Hood starts walking through the thing and he shows us all these people who are seemingly unimportant, like Krupp just tells us for now, just witness. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, the Nom cousins got reunited, and there was no hard feelings there. I like that.
Yeah. Cuz Tor was so relieved.
That's yeah.
I was like, all these years of him thinking that Rowlick hates him. If only
Because he
they just
stole his
talked.
girl.
If only they
You
just
know?
talked to each
If only they
other.
just talked. Yeah.
Yeah. Cutter, that scene with Cutter and Viticus I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. It's the coolest Cutter's ever been, right?
He's pretty cool in Orb Scepter Throne, but I agree.
Yeah, I mean, this was the most that I was like rooting for him.
Mm-hmm.
It was very reminiscent of the duel in Gardens of the Moon.
Yep.
Mm,
And more satisfying, really.
yeah. The like the whole shard and limb and chalice thing, I was like, I feel like that bit was just more of Erikson like filling out that thread and so that he could end it. It to me it was like I was like, I'm ready to be done with you, Chalice. So
Yeah, I mean, well, she obliges and pretty
I
soon,
know.
you know.
Yeah,
It
you guys
sounds
are
really
happy. She's
bad.
dead. She killed
I'm
herself. Yay.
sorry. Like
Uh,
that's not what I mean,
Hey,
but
you cut a rich woman, she bleeds. She bleeds just as much as a poor girl. And it's just that poor people are a lot more likely to.
Well, I like how in these chapters she acknowledges to Cutter's like, yeah, no, you're right. I actually do really like my life, and I don't I don't want to live like a
I don't want to
peasant.
give it up. He's like, you can walk away. She's like, but I like my life. And it's like, well, you can't have everything you want.
Yeah, I would say that like Chardon Lim and Hanat Or and like the Viticus subplot of them wanting to take over Darujistan. I'm not sure how I feel about the way it's resolved in this because
It's not really resolved.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not resolved. It comes up in Orb of Throne.
Okay.
Okay.
Within the book itself, it feels kind of like a non sequitur to me. I feel like we could have gotten just the chalice stuff, and it would have kept more thematically consistent. Well, it would have still been thematically consistent, and like Shard and Lim and Hanat Or just like aren't very interesting people. Right?
I agree.
Why do you think he brought them in? Like, if this book didn't have Viticus, Sharnlim, Hanador, like,
Well,
would
it could have just had Viticus, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think Viticus,
Yeah.
Viticus and Chalice would have been better, actually. Because
Mm.
Viticus is really quite important, I think. Even for Chalice's story, which I know you guys don't like it, and I do. But Shard and Lim and Hanat Or, I think, really feel like it's more important for Orb Scepter Throne, even though they're dead.
Okay, so it's
Which
just
I
more
don't
like
know.
split
You
up.
take that how you want, and maybe I don't know how I feel about things setting up other stuff in other books in terms of criticism for another book.
Yeah. I
Um,
guess that
I,
those were the kinds of things where I was just like, do you really matter in this story?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Like there's a lot of really good stuff in this book, and even the stuff that I have criticisms about, like Nimander's plots, like they all still tie in. But there does feel like there's a lot of stuff layered on top of that doesn't feel like it ties in very well with the what the book is trying to like thematically.
So with the Hounds arriving in Darujhistan, is that just because they sense that Rake is there with the sword?
I think that they were unleashed because they know it was going down. So, like, they were sent by Shadowthrone, I believe, to
Uh-huh.
protect the sword from the Hounds of Light. And who sent the Hounds of Light? Who knows?
Okay. So, but Shadow Throne sent the Hounds to protect the sword because it was agreed that Amanda was going to bring the sword to Darujhistan, or they were just following him.
So you remember the prologue of the book when Shadow
Yes.
Throne and there's a meeting of ascendants. So
Right.
the ones that meet are Shadow Throne, Animander, and Hood.
Mhm.
So presumably they discussed this plan then,
Mhm.
and they kind of set up safeguards for when Dragnipur would be undefended by Animander, because they knew that there would be a convergence and there would be a lot of ascendants trying to take it, basically, because it's like one of the most powerful artifacts in the world.
Which is
So,
also why
yeah, go ahead.
that was also why Mail kind of kept Traveler from getting there so quickly,
Mhm.
and also Shadowthrone and Cotillion.
I see. So that okay. So Hood did know that Animander was gonna get himself killed to go into Dragnipur, or did he not?
Yes.
Okay, he did
Yeah.
know.
Fun fact. So Steve, when I think the first time we talked to him, he said that this the Traveler Animander was based on a rolling a one,
hmm
which so in their gaming that means it was unintentional, but it's written now that as if it's intentional.
I see. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Steve didn't even know that there was a warren inside Dragnipur until Animander died.
What?
Immersion storytelling.
Imagine like dying from rolling a one to Dasim Ultur, and then finding out that there's a warren inside your sword.
Yeah.
That'd be
Who
fun.
was the game master or dungeon master or whatever
It's
for the
probably
game?
Ian. They
Huh.
took turns, but for that, it was most definitely, I assume.
Interesting. So wait, so did they like play through the entire campaign and then he wrote the books?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so it wasn't just Steve and Cam. It
Right.
was like many game sessions played with many different people, but the
Yeah.
most that it was Cam and Steve playing with each other, and they didn't like there are significant alterations from the gaming
Right.
to the books. He gave an estimate for how much of it was gamed somewhere, but there were sections that were gamed and sections that weren't gamed at all, basically.
Right.
And
But what
then
I'm
later on, they kind of formed it into the series.
Yeah, it's stuff that they changed to make it fit what they're trying to say this time.
right.
Like
Okay. So
not knowing
it
about
was
Mayo.
like these games that they played. So it wasn't like he was writing as they were playing and he was like, "Oh,
No.
now I got to go and justify
Hold on a
XYZ."
second.
Okay.
No, they did the gaming and then they tried to get Gardens of the Moon made into a movie, I believe, and
Right.
then it was reworked into the book.
Okay. Got it.
I kind of like Spite and Envy's conflict here, although like with other things, I'm not sure exactly how it ties in, but they do a good job of justifying their names for like the first time in the series, because they're kind of just nice most of the time until they meet each other. And
Each other.
their internal monologues, they're perfect for each other, because when Envy is looking at Spite, she's like, "Oh, she's always done things better than me, that bitch." And
Yeah.
Spite is just, she's like, "Well, what am I gonna do about my sister? I guess I'm just gonna kill her." Just gonna kill her out of nowhere, which is funny. Just like you have these god level beings who are entirely petty, basically.
hmm
They're like the closest we get to like Greek gods in this series, I think.
I see that. I mean, it is kind of like a little weird where it's like there's so many things happening and like they just decide, well, or they can't help themselves. They get into their own little rivalry and then they're like, okay, maybe we can team up to go get
Yeah,
the
we can team
sword.
up for a bit, but they're both thinking immediately about how they're going to betray each other.
Yeah.
And it's revealed that Draconis like engineered them deliberately to be this way so that they wouldn't team up, I guess, because they would be too powerful if they did.
Yeah.
Should we move on to chapter 22?
Just one more thing. Vorkin and Relic. I did not foresee that there would be this romance. It had to be told to me in the book, but that was nice.
It's been
Yeah, you're on board with this one?
It's been
Yeah.
hinted at most of the book, yeah.
Nice.
I mean,
Sort of.
I didn't. Well, it was more a kind of a surprise to me. It was like how much she really liked him. He kind of just has this like admiration for her.
Yeah.
I got a feeling that she liked him and other people could see it, but like Nom didn't.
Mm.
Or he's just like, no, she couldn't like me. Just relatable.
I like Vorkin in this book quite a well. I like Vorkin generally, even though she doesn't get much screen time in the Book of the Fallen. But she's just another character who's just cool, right? Chapter 22. Spinnik Darav stops Kalor from entering Durujistan. Klit bests Namender. Spindle and Munkrat save some children. Seer Domin meets Selind in combat once more. Hood brings the armies of the dead to Dragnapur. In a stunning twist, we learn that Traveler was actually Dassam Ultar in disguise, Panda. Did you see this coming?
Oh my god. I was so surprised. I was like, no way, and threw my book across the room.
Yeah, I think that's the reaction we've all had.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually supposed to be like. I think he's intended to show his hand here pretty early on in the series. It's just kind of funny to me that like it's only like the last book of Toll the Hounds where it's like finally just acknowledged. Yes, this is Dassam Ultar.
It's like everybody's like, finally.
Oh, speaking of plot character reveals, I guess Iskar Drak. We know he is Whiskey Jack now.
Whiskey Jack. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't put that together.
It felt this chapter was like a lot of callbacks from the rest of the series. Like Whiskey Jack's here, and we're gonna talk about Bowden, and we're gonna talk about all of these bone hunters, or not bone hunters, bridge burners, and the grave swords, and talk, and
when Hood is like, Iskar Drak, you shall form the spear, and then Iskar Drak's like, yes, I will strengthen the core with my bridge burners, and I will also include these companies from previous books. I found it a bit odd that we only heard about companies of people that we had already seen before in the series. That I would expect that there would be additional fighting forces included in this army of the dead that we hadn't heard about, but that people in the Malazan world would have. You know, like Krupp could expect them to have heard of and be like, oh, and also these people were here of this fighting force or whatever. So that was a bit weird that like it was only the protagonists of the books that we've read so far that warranted a mention, besides I guess the Segula, but minor criticism.
Erikson is not Tolkien, so you can't expect that.
That's true.
well, I think he does do a lot of that though, just not here.
Yes. Well, Tolkien would take every opportunity.
Yeah.
And let me give you the history of all those people in a footnote.
Spindle continues to pry Munkrat into doing the right thing and bringing up people in their past who inspired them to do the right thing and what it means to be a soldier. And I really enjoyed that.
He brings up Dassam Ultar. It's like Dassam Ultar is saying, "Oh, the first rule is to be not a terrible person, and then
do
everything
the
else
right
goes second."
thing.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. You know,
But I've forgotten how.
Yeah. Well,
and then you're gonna learn how to.
Yeah, Spindle's like, well, you've got a choice. Like, you either go and follow that. You know, he calls them what, Greta shit or something.
Yeah.
Or you come and help me with the children. And Munkrat's like, do I really have a choice? Well, sort of.
I'll kill you if you refuse. But I think it's also interesting because Dassam Ultar seems to have lost this idea himself. right? Like he's driven entirely by vengeance against Hood. He doesn't even know if it's the right thing to do, and he ends up killing Anamander Rake, who he thought of as a friend. It seems.
Right. He was like, I don't want
Just to get to his vengeance. Yeah, he doesn't want to do this, but he does it anyways because he's kind of like Calor, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like there are parallels between him and Calor. It's
You
just
say his
that,
breath started with vengeance and ended with grief.
Well,
You could say that. Yeah.
Animator stole his vengeance.
Oh no.
And let's see. Traveler has Animander's sword grief.
Yep. Well, he
oh,
calls it vengeance.
yeah.
They both call it vengeance.
Yes. Yeah, it's only Andorus that calls it grief. The loser. So, Panda, what did you think about Calor talking about how he, like his conversation with Spinnick Darav here? He didn't want to kill Whiskey Jack, right? He really actually regrets it. He's
Silver
sad about it.
Fox. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all Silver Fox.
Actually, there was a listener question about this. Sun Gamer asked, "Does this final part bring you around in Calor? Do you believe he was truly unable to stop him fighting Spinnick?" I think Calor is just like a really obsessed. Like now that you brought up the parallels between him and Traveler, like they're just both really obsessed with whatever it is that they're obsessed with, and I think part of Calor is like he really does have anger management issues.
That's true.
So, but I mean, like, the whole thing about Whiskey Jack is I kind of get it. Like, at the time when I was reading that part, I was very angry with Calor. But now I'm like, all right, I've gotten more information about you. I kind of get it. And he wasn't really aiming for Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack was just like being a hero and sacrifice himself. Do I think he truly couldn't stop himself? I think that he thought that, and therefore it's true.
I think Calor could justify anything after it's happened.
Yeah.
Or before it's happened.
Yeah.
Although we did get this part where, it's like Spinnick looked in his eyes and he didn't see anybody there or something. Like it did seem like he was taken over by something. But
He does have a really good line. Calor drew out his sword. Does it occur to any of you what these things do to me? No, of course not. The High King is cursed to fail, but never to fall. The High King is but what? Oh, the physical manifestation of ambition. Walking proof of its inevitable price. Fine. He readies a two-handed weapon. Fuck you two.
yeah.
That's a good line. And I think a lot of what drives Calor is just like he's held himself together through this like raw ambition for so long. He doesn't know how to let it go anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And like if he did, he would just kind of fall apart like Dewicker.
Mm-hmm. Well, Samar Dev had this thought, right, like about Traveler, when Traveler was going towards Darujistan, and what if he found what he sought? What if he won in his final battle, whatever that might be? What then for Traveler? It will kill him. His reason for living gone. Gods below, I will not bear witness to such a scene. I dare not, for I have my own obsessions. I think it's the same thing for Calor. It's like, okay, he really wants this throne, and either if he gets it or if he suddenly doesn't have this ambition anymore, what's the point? Like how much he's given up for this goal. Is that all worth? Yeah.
He ends up ruling the cosmos. Like what then, Calor? What are you gonna do now?
Yeah. But to me that kind of makes me think of when people go into retirement, and some people have a really hard time adjusting to retirement because they no longer feel like they have purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like the opposite. I'm like, I can't wait to retire because there's so much other things that I want to be doing other than, working for somebody else.
Yeah, I feel that. It's something seen a lot in soldiers when they come home from war too. They get home and it's like, what now? I really like Spinnick Darav here. He's so cool. I would love to play board games with Spinnick.
I love Spinnick. I if I'm being honest, I really love Calor this part too.
I don't hate Calor as much as I do before.
I would not play board games with Calor. He would be the sorest loser in the universe.
He would.
And he would cheat.
Yeah. And he would give you.
Wouldn't he fail though?
Well, he can succeed in local scenarios like a board game night. He would have to fail like the grand quest of whatever he was trying to achieve by playing the board games, but
So just make it a tournament.
Right. He would talk so much smack.
He would.
Yeah.
I think I would get so annoyed. I'd be like, all right, dude, I'm not playing with you.
That's the way he would fail. You know, he would win every game, and then no one would ever play with him again because he's the worst.
Don't play Monopoly with him.
Oh, don't play Monopoly.
Agreed.
Oh, if this was the slice of life Malazan book that you wanted, Panda, they totally would have just gone to the taverns for some mulled wine and then had like a chill conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what could have been.
But I still wanted to know what happened, with Dragnapur and Chaos and everything. So
Yeah.
that can be a side novella.
Chapter 23. Pust makes a mad dash for Dragnapur only to be stopped by a fat man. Chalice jumps from a high tower. Barathal escapes prison and stashes Char in the Azath house. Rake is slain by Dasim. The Hounds of Light also try for the sword. Calor kills Orphantal. Rip Orphantal. I assume it means literally nothing to you, Panda, but Orphantal, he's a nice guy.
I love Orphantal.
I was kind of annoyed. Orphantal is like, he's a soul taken, turns into this dragon, and like just one stab of the sword was kind
Through
of
his like brain, but yeah.
It was like
that's
his
fair.
throat or something.
Yeah. He does get killed really easily by Calor. This
Yeah.
is true.
That's what I was annoyed by. I was like, come on.
Fun fact: Orphantal used to be a woman.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
Now,
in like
in
Memories
early
of Ice?
editions, no, in early editions of Gardens of the Moon, he was referred to as Corlat's sister.
Oh. So was there just like an inconsistency that got fixed?
Yeah, it's been fixed.
I see.
Oh, Panda.
Yeah.
The true love story of this book. Pust finally has sex with what's her face, the High Priestess of Shadow.
Sorta Qualm or whatever.
Yeah, Sortico Qualm. She couldn't resist his charms, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
It's best for me to just not think about it. Yeah. And then he's gonna go and rewrite the.
He's the one who wrote it in the first place.
That part was hilarious. Cotilion's like, I thought you wrote it. Shadowthorn's like, I don't got time for that.
I delegated.
Would you delegate it too? Oh my god.
I love Shadow Throne.
That was funny.
Was this the chapter with the mule jousting?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the best part of the book.
That is a hilarious image. Except for those frickin' spiders. Ugh.
They showed up, ruined a perfect moment.
We told you the mules weren't finished.
Mules weren't finished. I find it absolutely hilarious how he describes Pust as like really like really riding the mule. You know, he's just screaming at it.
Oh yeah.
And it's just going walking pace. Yeah.
Plump. Whatever. I love that the mules they lost their riders and they're like, all right, what now? Just watching them squabbling on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Pust doesn't use like his enormous shadow powers to just kill Krupp, but yeah, I assume there's a reason.
Well, Krupp is also an elder god, right? Or like has
Cruel on his side?
elder god protection or whatever.
Like Krupp is like a minor mage on his own, right? He like almost exclusively uses it to steal pastries, I think.
Yeah.
And he does have the protection of Cruel in Memories of Ice. I'm not sure what would happen. I'm not sure why Pust didn't try to just kill him easily with his shadow powers, but it was a hilarious fight scene, so I'm willing to forgive it. Like, I guess they're playing like 4D chess or something.
Maybe Pust didn't like actually really want to kill him, you know?
Pust is, I don't think Pust understands himself, so I'd be surprised.
I did like the part where I mean I guess this is like later, not in this chapter, but the part where Shadow Throne said that Pust had a moment of sanity doing this.
Is that
This
why I
fight.
decided to steal the sword? Or try
Yeah.
to steal the sword?
I was like, actually, now
That's
that
such a
you
fun
say it,
conversation. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's Cotillion accuses Shadow Throne just like, yeah, you engineered this for us to
Right.
take the sword and betray you. He would have come around to me eventually. I would have been so powerful. Oh man, I love Shadow Throne.
It's a really small thing, but Crocus refers to himself as Crocus for the first time in
I
this
saw
chapter.
that. Yeah. I guess he's done being assassin
And
dude.
Like he finally gets it after
this is why she left me.
after like 6 books of trying to understand Absolar. He's like, oh, now I get it. Now I'm I finally grown up. Basically, he's past his edgelord status. Well done, Crocus.
You chase that girl.
You get her.
And Karsa is shaken at
Karsa is shaken.
the fight between not
Dassam.
Traveler
And
and Animander.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Never imagine.
I did it was kind of like not out of the blue, but it was just a little bit unexplained about how much Karsa became kind of loyal to Traveler. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. He's like, I'm gonna have his back. And like we saw the bromance, the two of them like getting along and everything, but I wasn't quite sold on like Karsa's reasoning for being so adamant that he was gonna help and see Travelers through.
Yeah, it's just like real recognizes real. Like the first, like the scene in Predator, when they're like they clasp hands and they do their arm wrestle.
I
It's,
haven't seen Predator.
mysterious male bonding, testosterone, stuff like that.
I think Karsa would probably do the same for a lot of the people he's traveled with.
Yeah.
Which comes to my biggest complaint of this book. He doesn't meet up with Nam, Torvald.
Yeah.
We never get a reunion. They're in the same city, and they never meet each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's very disappointing. I'm going to bring that up.
Maybe that'll come later? I don't know. They both were too busy.
It doesn't happen in Orb Zipper 3.
Oh, okay. Well.
How about that moon imagery, though? Like, this is the best part of the Chalice sections for me by far, right? Like, it's so poignant. She has her moon in a globe, and then the moon overhead shatters, and I guess she's just like, well, I guess that's it for old Chalice.
Jump. Yeah, it's cool. Moon shattered, and then it kind of coalesced together.
Sort of.
I wasn't so sure exactly why she jumped. I guess
she lost everything.
She just
tired
got
of her life.
Fired. Yeah.
Lim kind of forced her into a position she didn't want to take.
But she was free from Viticus.
Yeah, so we see through her conversation with Shard and Lim previously, we see like what could have been. He tries to manipulate her into serving his own ends, and then he leaves thinking, oh, she could actually make a really good counselor if she wanted to. And we know from her perspective that she thinks that she's actually going to be fine through all this because her dad's going to defend her and nothing would be able to get to her. But she just feels like such a terrible person. And the indication to me that she was going to do this was when Shard and Lim confronts her about sleeping with Crocus, and she initially resists and then like afterwards thanks him.
Mm-hmm.
And she smiles and whatever. And that seems to me to be the point when she decided to do it, because then she's like, oh yes, I'm she kind of like internalized it finally. She's like, I'm this terrible person. I don't deserve to live. She talks about how it would be pain and pleasure until she awakened.
I guess in this sense, to me, like her parallel in this story would be like Monkrat in some ways, where they both have done things that are not, like they're not great. I mean, Monkrat apparently has done a lot more than her that we know of, and Monkrat had somebody else who kind of slapped some sense into him, whereas for her, she was truly left alone, and she took to me, she like took the easy path out.
Yeah.
I think her story is tragic, and I don't think she would have been left alone. I think she explicitly talked about how And I think other people talk too about how much she is loved, especially by her father, and how he would do anything for her. And I think just her killing herself was just incredibly tragic, and she felt like she was in a loveless marriage, and
Well, she was.
yeah, and she was trapped in that one. And I think by even being freed from that, she felt like she would be going back into chains again.
I agree that it's a tragic story. I think that what she needed was someone to be willing to sit her down and tell her the hard truths, like she was sort of getting from Crocus earlier on, even though he was going to leave her, as we know. But yeah, like having someone who is willing to tell her the hard truths and then also be frank that like she's not actually a terrible person, right? Like she doesn't actually do anything that's that bad in this.
Yeah, she's not that bad. She's just complicated.
Certainly nothing that she couldn't make up for.
Yeah, she just didn't have the courage.
Yeah.
She was just so tired, and she was so self-hating that she I think didn't think that there was any possibility she could redeem herself.
I don't know how true it is, but she definitely felt like she was just chained no matter what, and that's what she didn't want.
Like I think, like she definitely could have escaped, right?
She could have. I mean, yeah, like just like Monkrat.
I wouldn't say she would end up like Monkrat necessarily. Like she
No,
could just like.
I didn't say she ended like Monkrat. I'm saying she could have made these decisions like Monkrat did.
Oh yes,
to get out of it.
Right.
Yes.
And yeah, and I do think that she could have, but I don't think that she thinks she.
Right. Well, but that's the thing is that when I say she is alone, like in that moment, she was
Mhm.
alone.
Yeah.
Like she
Because
she had
she
a
felt
whole
alone.
right, and she all had a whole house of like servants and stuff, but like they weren't her friends. They weren't there for to benefit her like mentally or emotionally. They were just servants, right? And like there were the parts where when she like went to see Chardon Lim in her nightgown basically, and she was like, I know that they're talking about me and blah 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 blah. Like they weren't there for her best interests. And her father to me was more of like maybe he did really love her, but at the same time he's also there to like protect his name and his legacy. So I think it's a bit more selfish in terms of like if what she was thinking, like, oh, he would have stepped in and protected me, nobody would touch me. But in reality it's not like she's like her father is her confidant or anything. Whereas like Spinnock and Monkrat, like, or sorry, Spindle was like, we're soldiers, we have that bond, like we know, they have the similar experiences, and it's like just snap out of it. And she didn't have somebody like that. Like I think Crocus could have, but I guess the other thing is like she wasn't strong enough to accept it and do the work to dig herself out of that situation.
Yeah, and she also didn't treat Crocus very well.
No.
I think another part of the reason why she felt so alone is because even though she knew that her father would defend her, that's kind of like an infantilizing thing, right? Like she's suddenly not a person with agency again. She's someone that needs to be defended by her dad.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't feel good.
Speaking of happier things, Race got his dead cat.
Named it Fluffy, I think. Tufty, yes. A half-rotted cat.
Yeah, which okay, so you can bring dead things into the Azath house, right? I mean, I'm assuming so because
Yeah,
It seems you could bring almost anything into there as long as it fits through the door.
Well, and the Azath house lets you in.
okay.
Yeah.
So the reason why I ask is because Auntie was like talking about Char. It's like so long as he's breathing when we carry him across the threshold. I guess what he's trying to say is as long as he's still breathing when we bring him in, he won't die.
Yeah.
Which is why Kalam is still alive. Nom and Vorkin made it out.
Yeah. I better see him again. I hope so.
Hour?
Callum. Also, I guess I can't say, I don't remember his name, but the Talanamas that Harlow gave those legs to came knocking.
He just got scooped up. That's it. He's out of the story. This one, at least.
That's it?
Well, his story is picked up in Orb Scepter Throne, as I understand it. But
okay.
yeah, it's definitely like a lot is made of him, and he just kind of gets like scooped out.
At first, I was like, oh, maybe he's gonna be the one to save Harlow when Venez was like
No, he
chasing
just
him.
kind of screws off.
And no. So I was waiting.
Yeah, I was too the first time around. I don't quite understand why he didn't take any time to save Harlow, because they seem to have a genuine bond forming. But I guess he was just like, yeah, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find out wherever Raced is. I'm going to kill him. And I guess he found him pretty quickly.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he has like an internal compass. It's like
He knew where
Jacob.
Raced was at all times, you know?
Well, I'm about a third into Orb Scepter right now, and the last scene they were playing cards with a deck of dragons in House of the.
Oh yeah,
Really?
Race was saying that like he seemed a bit too angry to have a conversation, but there is time, you know.
Huh. Can I read Orb Scepter Throne after this, or do I have to read other things?
You could just read Orb of the Throne.
Okay. Well, who knows when I'll get to it, but maybe.
Yeah, you don't you don't actually have to read anything else. The Ice Book.
Ice books are surprisingly capable of standing alone.
Mostly.
Yeah.
The Crimson Guard stuff's kind of the whole through line, and some stuff with Iska.
I
Yeah.
have a complaint, a general complaint. When I go to bookstores, I mean, I don't always find Erikson books on the shelves, but I find them a lot more often than I do Ice's books. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not fair.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
But I did find Knight of Knives at a used bookstore, so now I have it.
You might enjoy that one.
I hope so.
It's quite short.
Yes.
So much shorter.
Yeah. I like a lot of Ice's stuff. I didn't like Night of Knives very much, but it is quite a popular.
I like it quite a bit. Mostly just for the character and action sequences, but thematically it's kind of weak.
Which one?
Night
Knight
of
of
Knives.
Knives.
Oh, okay. I see.
Where were we?
We're on chapter 23. Anything to say about the Hounds of Light? Probably not, eh? They're kind of just run towards the sword.
Yeah, it was like cool, like it was like a scene that was like built up, and it's like, oh, here's one and another. Oh my goodness, there's 10.
10 Hounds.
And then, like 10 against like Karsa and Cutter.
Yeah.
They got cut
Who
down
has
to
a
5
lance,
though.
not even his knives, you know?
Yeah. And then what's his face? With the Sagula comes through.
That's in the next chapter, but
Oh, okay.
A second. Yeah.
yeah, let's just move on to chapter 24 then. Chapter 24. Enta Salon struggles to hold back the power of the dying god. The Trade Guild makes a pit stop in Dragnipur. The Segula II, Karsa, and Barathal hold off the Hounds of Light. Picker meets Talk again. Animander sacrifices himself to free the Gate of Darkness. Mother Dark embraces her children once more. The Redeemer embraces the dying god. Some stay in Darujistan, some leave, and some are reunited with their loved ones. Stunny lets herself love her son.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I think it's the most beautiful thing that so many conflicts were resolved with hugs.
Ah, that was nice.
I'm in favor of hugs. You know, hugs are good.
Yeah, you hug the dying god, everything. Mother Dark hugs her children, everything. Harlow hugs his mother, everything. And I cried every time.
There was a study that was done where if you hug somebody for like a minimum of 6 seconds, that's like how long it takes for your body to like release these brain chemicals that it's like bonding chemicals.
Yeah, it's like oxytocin, I think.
Yeah. So, except, 6 seconds is kind of long.
It is a long hug, but you just got to hold on. They try and let go. No, don't let them.
Did you like the reunion between Karsa and his dog?
Three-legged dog.
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
and his children? But
Mostly his dog, though.
Yeah.
Let's be frank. We mostly care about the dog.
They are daughters of rape.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
does he regret?
No, he does not.
Yeah, and the mom of the mom of the daughter that he raped doesn't seem to regret it either.
No, she didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I thought his answers were kind of ambiguous, right? So he says words that could be interpreted as regret, and then it's Dev who's like, "What, did you regret anything?" And he's like, "No, I don't regret my children." So it's the children that he doesn't regret, and of course, like Harlow, these people only exist because someone was raped.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really good moment to show how much he's grown as a character, even though he seems so certain the entire series, and he very rarely openly acknowledges his faults. But he's shifted his perspective enormously through these books. Good guy,
Yeah.
Carson.
And
I
Sam. I
think
love Sam.
he's also kind of doubled down a bit on the on his like god mentality. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I think
Yeah.
up through like the first half of this book, he was definitely still in that god mentality, like no, nothing can hurt me, and I'm delivering justice and doing what's right. I think in this last part where he is seeing Traveler and Rake, maybe he's not as certain.
He's definitely
He's-
humbled.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
learned humility and awed by sacrifice.
Yeah.
Just like everyone. I forgot. So everyone else, they solved their problems with hugs. But one person was inspired by Anamander to kill. And that was the godling.
Right.
Yeah.
He killed his creator.
Ataspa.
Ditch decides he does. He's gonna do what Draconis asked him to.
Was
poor
it
Ditch.
was it
And-
Ditch?
Huh?
It
Ditch like talks to the Godling, and like without Ditch, the Godling definitely would have killed Animander, I think.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, but it was the godling that made the decision.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ditch was
because at that
inspired also
point,
by Rake.
Ditch was only the eyeball and brain,
Yeah, basically.
which then his eyeball got taken away.
I really like the existential inner thoughts of the gun as it was born and as it made its first decision that went against its nature.
And then immediately died.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was really cool POV.
Yeah, it's very existential. Like it's brought into the world only to die, and it just has to decide what it wants to do with the time that it has.
It was brought in the world to kill.
Yeah,
To kill someone else and then to die. Is this where we get Monkrout's final act with Ansi or Spindle?
Yeah.
Or was the fast one? Because I thought that was incredible. I already mentioned earlier, so I won't go on again. But Monkrat even stopping Spindle from reenacting vengeance and being inspired by Spindle, and then keeping Spindle from doing something wrong, which is
Yeah,
Hmm.
not in front of the kids.
Yeah.
They have been through enough.
Spindle. You make me feel like a good man, and I need to stop you.
Let me give you the gift that you gave me.
Obviously, it was deliberate. I kind of would have preferred it if Solana's actions were shown on screen. You know?
The dragon?
Yes.
Yeah. I was like waiting.
Yeah, 'cause, like the entire book, you're waiting, and it's you're very often reminded. It's like, well, she's still waiting. She's still up
there.
but the waiting's almost over. And then when she does take off, it's just like, oh, she's gonna kill Gradathan, and it happens off screen.
Yeah. Well, when I was reading about the dragon that came and scooped up 3 of the Hounds of Light, I was like, "Oh, is that Solana?" No.
Nope, Tooless
Shorn.
Shorn.
Why are there 10 Hounds of Shadow and only 7, but now
10
5?
Hounds of Light. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, 10 Hounds of Light and then only 5 Hounds of Shadow, even though 2 were killed. I don't get it. It's not fair.
Yeah, I forget. I like there's some of the metaphysics of them talked about in this section, I think. But
Okay, I just forgot.
I don't remember what they are. I have a really mixed feelings about how the Hounds are portrayed in these books, because on the one hand, they're portrayed as like basically unstoppable gods of destruction that are beholden to no man. And on the second, like, Barathol of all people is able to seriously wound one of them. And that to me, and like this also happens in Gardens of the Moon, right? Like they're really cool until they're stopped and killed relatively easily.
Okay,
Yeah.
first of all, the one that Barathol took care of was first injured by Chower, who he's working on like crazy human strength, right? And then Barathol was working on vengeance, which gives him superpowers. So also, don't you talk bad about Barathol.
Like, I like Barathol, but like he's just a guy, right? Like he's not even a guy that's been fighting all his life. He put down his axe for like 20 years or something, and this is like the first time he's used it in a meaningful way, as far as I remember, in the series. But like he is cool. But
I choose to believe that the Hound was weakened by the presence of Namander in
Namander wasn't there
on the continent.
on the continent.
Okay.
He's just such a good leader, and that's
Oh. I get what you're saying. It's just like these hounds like wrought so much destruction on Darujistan, and like they're huge and terrifying, and yet I mean I guess it's kind of the same thing with the gods. Like a human was able to kill or take down, wound.
But usually we have like a reasonable excuse for that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
whether that god gave up sort of their power into an object, or with the human had some outside help, or boom
I mean, I
booms.
guess like the hound
I
was
mean, it's right.
taken by
It's Barathol, and he shouldn't
surprise.
be doing it. But I'm going with my Namander theory.
Okay.
I guess your Namander theory makes just as much sense as any other. Yeah, it also happened in like House of Chains with Karsa killing the two Hounds of Darkness pretty easily. Like
It's
he,
just
he
like
struggled more against the
convenient.
Naruk. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would have been great if the Hounds went through the entire series being undefeated. Basically, there's a lot of
And then taken down
gravitas
by
that's
Barathol.
lost by getting taken down by guy with axe.
I mean, I guess like
And Shower.
what was
And
really
Char.
the point of the Hounds of Light?
So they're
Barathol.
essentially foreshadowing in this book.
Okay.
I'll say they're looking for a weapon of pure. They're going to take Dragon Horcrux as a weapon of pure justice.
Mm-hmm.
So like read and find out.
Basically, that's the
But,
reason everyone else is after the Dragdipper.
I would have been able to buy Barathol defeating the Hound of Light if he'd had a spear. That's that's actually the weapon that makes you unstoppable.
Maybe Troll's spear.
Troll
Mhm.
spear, yeah, exactly, right? Like he like what's the Hound gonna do? You're just gonna stab it before it gets to you.
So, okay, like wild theory time from Panda. The ending of the series will involve the Leosin administering justice somehow.
Interesting.
I like that theory.
That's all I got.
I know the answer to this question is no, but were either of you as moved as I was reading about Stani and Harlow?
I did not cry, but yes, I think I agree. It's a very moving scene.
I like the scene a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't cry in these books, and the moments that move me tend to be different moments. But it's like inarguably a really good scene. I think.
Agreed. It's like, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
Nothing good came of it, nothing. That's not true. That's not true. There was me.
Yeah.
And then he says, see, Bainus, this is my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they lived happily ever after, Panda. Harlow got his happy ending just like you wanted for him.
Good. It better. That's how it's gonna be in my mind.
I wonder what happened to his sisters.
You mean Hinty and whatever the other one?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're with him.
Yeah. But
So
do you think
I'm assuming Stani just
take care of
took
them
him
too?
in. Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely high needs though. They definitely have brain damage and severe developmental disorders, which is sad.
That is very sad.
Just take him to a Daniel healer.
Can they fix brain? I don't know if they can fix that.
I thought there was a line that said that Shower could have been fixed if he.
I think that's correct. Yeah. I remember
Spite
that.
says that to him.
Yeah.
Like I think like Spite could fix it.
She mentions Danul.
Yeah, no, like I think it can be fixed with Danul. Like it seems like something that requires someone with like immense skill though. Not as easy as fixing a broken leg or something.
Sure. That's doable.
Yes, theoretically doable, but practically maybe not.
I did like that Picker got out of the wherever she was held, and her her meeting Karsa. I have a message
I
for
like
you.
Malazans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want me to tell you in private? Or do you want me to just shout it for everybody?
Well, fine. This is really a conversation that you shouldn't be having here, but I can say it if you want. Yeah, she's the quintessential Malazan soldier, in my opinion.
It's great.
Yeah, Picker and Blend also have a happy ending, so yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty happy ending overall.
There are a lot of happy endings here.
Yeah.
I just love it because everyone's fighting their own fight, and this book is really kind of about fighting chaos or despair or nihilism, whatever, and everyone there's a real value in just like even from the epigraph thing we read, there's real value in just having the fight, and
Mhm.
you kind of win the fight by just fighting and
Even though you'll
getting
still lose.
yeah, and almost everyone's resolution was from getting inspired by other people.
It's funny because this is like almost just absurdism. Although I'm always uncertain as to how much knowledge Steve has of philosophy. It's kind of like a fun game for me to try and figure that out. Obviously, he's like really good at he's a really I think he's a wise man. I think he's good at thinking. I just don't know how much of like the formal theory training he's had.
Why does that matter?
Oh, it doesn't. I just have fun with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like he gets really close to these philosophical ideas
He does.
that are argued about, and I'm always uncertain as to how much of that is just him stumbling upon the ideas himself, and him knowing about the ideas and wanting to explore them more.
So something I am curious about is like when he writes these things, because whatever, I don't know the exact age of when he wrote these books, but it seems like relatively young. And
Like
from
40s, I think, right?
okay,
He's in his 40s.
okay, so not like
Please.
that young. For some reason, I was thinking like 30s and maybe late 20s.
Follow Christopher Paolini's example is like Gardens of the Moon was written at 16.
Just like where do you dig from, like how many of this how much of this have you experienced yourself versus like you're talking to people, you reading about it, like where does it come from? Like there's such depth and breadth in terms of the experiences that he writes, and not just experiences but also different ways of thinking, and that in itself is quite impressive. Um, I don't always enjoy. I don't enjoy every perspective that he chooses to write from and about. Um, but I do admit, like it is
The Oxby
impressive.
of you was great.
Sure.
The fields that he studies, I think, are basically uniquely well suited to giving these perspectives. In my opinion, like archaeology and anthropology, like they're so good for being exposed to these lines of thought, and like you unearth these remains, and like you're confronted with really big questions about humanity. Like
Yeah.
there's this archaeological site that was dug up where they found an entire population of people that were systematically crippled and tortured in like North America, I think. And he's written like about torture and how he, like, for example, people who've had their feet beaten, like souls beaten, they can never walk again normally in their life. And so when you're confronted with all this stuff, naturally, I think you start thinking along these lines and you try and figure out how to reconcile all these things. And I think a lot of it is just like an organic process.
Yeah, and like part of me wonders like how much of this he's like worked out as more like therapeutic for himself, and how much he's explored his own like feelings on, own like philosophy on, um to be able to write these things. Because I mean, for me, I'll be honest with you, like I can read or watch documentary about some community, some like anything like in the real world about like tragedy, or just like, oh, this is a study on this kind of personality and how they respond, and I enjoy that kind of stuff, but I'm not like, oh, let me like try to recreate that in a fictional world.
Yeah, it's definitely a different experience, I think, when you're like physically at a location and you pick up like a potsherd on the ground and you like piecing together the story of what must have happened, right?
Hmm.
It's archaeology is a very active process that he's talked about in his essays fairly frequently, and it's always an interesting perspective, I find.
I guess because of that kind of training where like it's not just the studying of it, right? You're also writing about it
Mm-hmm.
in an academic setting. I guess from that practice, it's not too big of a stretch to then say, okay, I'm going to take that kind of writing and do more with it.
Yeah. And when you're on these digs, like sometimes you're like out in the wilderness with with your people for like weeks,
Right.
and you know how like camping kind of gets around a campfire.
That's
Conversations get So just imagine like that extended over a long period of time, and you're being confronted with all of these things about human nature that
Yeah.
are kind of like inherently divorced from your own like way of seeing the world, right? Because obviously all these ancient people didn't have all these assumptions that we have as Westerners, and they didn't have modern comforts, and all of them would die in childbirth or from getting infected cuts and so on.
Epilogue time?
I want to read something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
There is a round man, circumference unending, stepping ever so daintily through the rubble on his way back to the Phoenix Inn. It will not do to be a stranger to sorrow, if only to cast sharp the bright wonder of sweeter things. And so, even as he mourns in his own fashion, with cupcakes, so too he sighs wistfully. Love is a city, yes, indeed, a precious city, where 1,000 paths wind through the shadow and light, through air stale and air redolent with blossoms, nose-wrinkling perfume and nose-wrinkling dung, and there is gold dust in the sewage and rebirth in the shedding of tears. Love is a city.
It's the best Krupp has ever been. I really like Mother Dark in this novel. I really like Aranatha. I find it very moving, this plot line, and when she
She's
accepts,
inspired by Nimander.
I guess, when she realizes what Animander has done, and she's just like, okay, I accept it. I'm going to take the burden of the Andy on myself again, and I'm gonna give it another shot because of what you've done, Animander. Even though you did something so terrible to me way back in the day.
Not just for him.
Yes, not just for him, but like that's like the motivating factor, the catalyst, if you would.
I wish I cared about Mother Dark more. I feel like I would get a lot more out of this series. But I think part of it is just
You don't like the Andy?
I don't really understand like the conflict. Like I know what I've read and I get parts of it, but in terms of like the enormity of like why it's significant and why she abandoned them, I'm just like I don't buy. Like
Yeah. The way they talk about it is very abstract and metaphorical, right? Like
yeah.
with the coming of light and their coupling, that's what caused all this chaos basically, and they're turning over these arguments in very abstract ways. And it's like, well, why does it matter that there's light introduced to the world, right? Why does it matter that people can finally see things? I like it in large part because I just like the imagery of light versus dark and the interplay between them, and the philosophical musings that you have and the conflicts that arise from that. That's why I really like the Andy, basically. And then any affection that I have for the characters basically comes as a secondary thing. So if you're not grabbed by the imagery, I think, and like these fundamental questions of like chaos and order and light and dark and like ancient historical wrongs, then like you're not gonna find it to be, you're not gonna get grabbed by it, which I think is fair. And like a lot of these sections would be very alienating, I think, or would kind of boring. It's like, well, who cares?
Maybe I'll feel different, like, whenever I get to rereading these.
I wouldn't be surprised if you end up feeling the same. But yeah. I really like when Animander sacrifices himself, though. It's a good.
I really like
section.
when Dragnapur is running from chaos and the entire battle happens, and then Animander sacrifices himself. It's just cool. It's just really, really, really cool.
It is really cool.
And you got the fight scene between Animander and Traveler, and the symbolism there with grief and vengeance, and then you got Hood coming to the city. This book just has like the absolute coolest moments, maybe after the Crippled God, in the entire series.
I think the end of Dust of Dreams might be my favorite for coolest moments.
Really? I mean,
yeah.
Dust of Dreams has a cool ending, but
it's a really cool ending.
No.
We'll talk about that when we get to it. But
yeah, I didn't really like, because before when they talked about the chaos in Dragnapur, they only talked about really like the chaos. There was some imagery at some points, but it was still pretty abstract. It wasn't until this section where they're like, okay, there was like actual beings that they were fighting, right?
And a dragon falling from the sky and being
Yeah.
consumed. That was really good imagery.
Yeah. So yeah, I at first I was just like, so what exactly are they fighting? Are they just like fighting a blob? So yeah. I don't know, maybe it's like chaos can take whatever shape it wants and it took a shape that was fightable.
I think a lot of this is the that's what Steve said was his favorite
Yeah,
piece of art of the series. Yeah.
it's above my bookshelf.
I think a lot of this and like the conflict with the death and a lot of these things, the reason that chaos has these forms is because the people that are fighting it need to have something to fight. So the power is given shape by their expectations and by their need,
I
basically.
see. Have you ever read actually that would be a spoiler.
Battle of the Linguist Mages? No, I haven't.
Yes, but also no. Something by Michael Crichton. Anyway, we can talk
And,
about it later.
I've seen Jurassic Park. You know,
It's not
I
that
read a few
one.
things from Crichton.
We'll talk about it later. It really is a spoiler.
if you want a really exhaustive discussion on what it means to fight these abstract concepts, you should read Carcass.
Hi. Maybe I'll try it one day, but
I think you would hate it. I think you would hate it.
I'm not gonna get
so
very
bad.
far.
Yeah.
I agree with him, especially since you didn't like this book.
It's not that I didn't like this book. It's just I didn't love it, and part of it is like the
Same thing.
pacing. Okay.
The perfect pacing. The perfect pacing.
Sure.
Mm,
Okay.
I normally don't have issues with pacing, but I think they're, you know, the pacing could be more perfect, let's say.
Oh my god. I'm gonna tear off my face. I had to stop myself from reading, like, more than any of the past 7 books. I had to, like,
Really?
keep myself from keeping to read. Yes, like, I could not put this
Wow.
book down.
I had a hard time picking it up.
I will say the last book in this book it was a very easy read for me.
I think most of it is probably my mood. Like it was just dragging on for me. So yeah, it's more of a me problem.
Shall we go to the epilogue?
Yes, please.
Epilogue. Nimander takes charge of the Andy. Caladan Brew destroys Dragnipur, freeing the souls inside. Krupp dances for Fisher and Cruel. He is a very small section of this book, but Caladan Brood is excellent in here, I think.
I agree.
He insists he's going to bury Animander first before destroying Dragnipur. You know, and also Spite and Envy are just, they immediately realize that when Caladan Brood arrives, nope, they're not getting the sword. Sorry.
Like, okay, yeah, we'll be patient. Maybe next time. Did they know that he was going to destroy it?
They knew that he showed up, and they're.
But they weren't expecting him to destroy it.
I don't know if they knew what he was going to do with it.
Yeah, because like it sounded like they were like, okay, we're just going to try again next time, but there is now no more sword.
Mm-hmm. But there's going to be a next thing for them to try for.
Oh, okay,
presumably.
got it.
Yeah, because
Daddy's back, so
Daddy is back. Daddy Draconis. They don't act like it, right? But they're unfathomably old. They're some of the oldest creatures in the series.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that they have time.
That's true.
And they seem to be almost unkillable, given how ferociously they fight with each other.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what happens to the souls that they freed.
Wouldn't this epilogue be a perfect time to have a Torvald and Karsa reunion?
Well, okay, but counterpoint, we could have Torvald and Ralik going home to Tessera and her thinking how nice a threesome would be.
That was funny.
Just have Karsa there already.
Why would he be there?
That would be a foursome then.
Because he heard Torvald's in city. He's like, hey, have you heard of Torvald Nom? They're like, oh, he lives over there. And he knocks on the door, and Tessera is like, oh, wow, you're big. Come inside. And And he's sitting down to tea, and then a knock comes at the door, and she's like, "Wow, 4 guys. Oh my goodness."
3 guys.
Okay.
Oh yeah, 3 guys.
We'll just let that be the canon in your head.
Maybe in the Slice of Life spin-off.
There's not enough evidence for it in the text, unlike my headcanon with Ander and the Hounds of Light.
Okay. Anything else?
What style of dance do you think Krupp does? I like to think he's like okay, he's probably a ballet, but I would prefer it if he was like a salsa or a tap.
I was watching
Contemporary.
Bluey, and they were doing flossing on Bluey, where you put like
Okay.
arms.
Ugh,
I think he was doing that.
no,
No.
not even as a joke, Kieran.
No.
That's
Why?
no.
Why?
That's
Yeah.
too boring for
It's so
Krupp.
overdone. Yeah.
I've never seen it before.
Wait, really?
Well, you're lucky. So
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Like it was on an episode of Bluey.
it was all over social media and I mean in real life like a few years ago.
Mhm.
Well, I'm glad I didn't see.
Even in the news.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, it was everywhere and far outstayed its welcome. So no, Krupp didn't floss. I'm sorry.
That was flossing.
Yeah, okay. That's we probably. Do you have any more listener questions?
We do. Some gamer also asks, how much of what happens do you think was part of Animander's plan, and how much just went close enough? E.g., did he mean to get sent to Dragnapur? Did he know Aranatha could bring Mother Dark back?
He didn't know about Aranatha. I'm almost
I'm
certain.
positive he didn't know about Aranatha.
Yeah. He just. I think that he was making a gesture to Mother Dark and was hoping that she was paying enough attention to notice it. Given that involved the Gate of Darkness and Mother Dark is essentially darkness, it would be unlikely for her not to be paying attention. I think he definitely did did intend to get killed by Dassam.
I agree. Especially the way
think,
he made his sword just hit himself.
Right. I think it went to plan.
Also notice that these swords made a cross.
No, I'm not noticing that.
No, he put his sword vertically and the sword hit it horizontally.
Yeah. And he was killed by it.
Yeah.
I do think that he didn't anticipate how much trouble the Dying God would be. Like Andis Salon, like if he hadn't survived for for an obscenely long time, then just all of the Andy would have just immediately gotten corrupted and died or something.
So the Dying God is not the crippled god.
No.
But they're very similar.
Yes. It actually outlines here what the difference in their philosophy is. Like the crippled god is like you take glory in being
broken,
crippled and broken, and you kind of wallow in it, and there's your power. And the dying god is like the act of dying itself and of losing the battle is where you find your worship.
And where did this god come from? Does it matter?
This god, it was what's his face? Nightchill's lover. Yeah, Bellarden. He was
an unwanted aspect of Bellarden that when Bellarden and Nightchill and Silver Fox merged. Well, Silver Fox.
Well, I got that part, but I thought that was like that wasn't the actual dying god. It was just
no. That was Bellarden. He tried to put himself into puppet shape by meeting Hairlock at the bottom of the abyss.
I got a lot of power from chaos, and then after the Panian Domain collapsed, there was a lot of people that were left kind of horrified at everything, including what they had done themselves. So, yeah, they're in a very nihilistic, a negative nihilistic place, because nihilism doesn't have to be negative. Yeah, so a lot of self-hatred, a lot of wanting to punish themselves and others, and thinking that, it's better to just end things, essentially.
So you're saying that Animator not anticipating the dying god being so important means that thank Jesus that Animander was there to save the Andy.
I would say thank Aranatha that she was there to save the Andy.
Aranatha can't fight Clip. She can't best the dying god.
Nimander didn't fight him either. He just kind of like grabbed him and threw him. After he was already
beat him.
I would say that at that point, so at that point in the story, the Gate of Darkness has been freed. Mother Dark has all her power back. The threat is basically gone, right?
And Seer Doman did his thing.
Seer Doman did his thing. Yeah, Seer Doman did his thing, and now he has to protect the Redeemer forever. He gets a pretty raw deal.
I'm gonna make an analogy, and people are probably gonna hate me. So like the Pan and Seer Doman dude, Pan Seer Doman
Yeah.
from Memories of Ice, and like the Dying God here. It's like, you know how in some TV shows, like each episode there's like the bad guy, but then there's a bigger bad guy. So like Power Rangers or like Sailor Moon, like each episode
Monster of the Week stuff.
yeah, they're fighting the monster of the week. So like the Panyan Seer
Seer.
is like that. Same thing with the Dying God, and like the bigger bad guy is the crippled god. Although the crippled god was at some point also kind of monster of the week. So
And Calor is he doesn't think that the crippled god has good chances right now because all of the gods are arrayed against him, and maybe he has a few tricks up his sleeve. We'll see.
maybe. Well, I guess we're gonna find out. So, or I'm
find
gonna
out.
find out. You already know. We got a few more questions. Dusty Strings says, "End of Told the Hounds. Don't remember specific chapter. Panda, what did you think of Hood?" We kind of talked about this already, and I mean, Hood was none of the people that I thought it was.
Yeah, I admire how often you were willing to guess and how wrong all of those guesses were. None of them were close, as far as I remember.
No.
Yeah, I tried to give you hints, but yeah.
Yeah, well.
I mean, I tried to be misleading, so yeah, I think that balanced out.
Yeah. But I think it's cool. That
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
satisfied
this
with who it is?
it's just this jacket, and now there's no more Hood, but that the part where he was like, "Oh, let the dead ones go to their gods or something."
Yeah, let the gods claim their own.
Yeah. I'm curious how that will play out in the end of the series.
Oh,
It
I
is
would
ki-
like to
yeah.
say, do you remember the deal that Ganos had with Hood?
I forgot. That was
I
so
believe it
long
was
ago.
Bone Hunters. Ganos was talking to Hood, and they got them out of trouble when they were on a boat.
Uh-huh.
Well, I believe this was part of that.
Oh, that they would go to their own gods?
No, that Hood would no longer be the god of death.
Oh.
Maybe.
There's a second
Why?
part that's coming.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, you haven't seen the last of Hood, Panda.
Oh, I doubt I would. I mean, that's the thing, is like, dead is not dead. Dead is
In
not
this
always
case, dead is not dead because they were put into Dragonapur, and now all the souls are freed.
right.
So, yeah,
Except the ones that were claimed by.
yes,
Right.
and presumably the ones that are far too crippled to live, anyways. You're not
Yeah.
gonna see Ditch again.
They're just
I don't
gonna
know. I think
go into dust.
they might be.
I don't think so.
Maybe.
But yeah, who
Okay.
knows?
Next question. Tormate. Oh, go ahead.
I would just like to say something about Hood. I really like it's I think the implication here is that before Hood, all of these dead didn't have anywhere to go. Like the souls of the dead didn't have anywhere to go. They were probably just claimed by chaos. And
Wouldn't they be claimed by the gods?
if they have gods, right? Like they ask someone asks
Yeah.
Hood, what about all the people that don't have gods? And he's just
Right.
like, it's not my job anymore. He's done this long enough. So like Hood has been taking care of these souls basically for many thousands of years and like enduring the burden that is being Lord of Death. Like clearly he didn't like it at all.
What happens
But-
to the people that are the souls that are in Hood's realm then?
They're not his responsibility, but you'll see
But
what
they get
happens
to-
with his
oh.
realm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Next question. Tormig asks, how did you feel about the Ox and Char POVs? Also, Pust versus Krub, who is the GOAT?
So I think Pust got robbed of the title by Krupp. If it was a fair fight, Pust wins every time, right? But all these spiders and Bukarala were clearly hampering his game, and
They weren't
like
fighting
the timing
with
wasn't
him.
great. Yeah, and like Pust's blood, as we know, was canonically not in his brain at the moment, so it's really it's an unfair fight.
I think it's an unreliable narrator from Pust. Or from Krupp.
from Krupp.
That's also probably true, right? Like he deliberately pans away from the action just as it gets going.
Yes. He's like,
So I think
honestly,
he's
we should
ashamed.
just
Yeah,
leave them.
he's ashamed of how he did in his performance against Pust, I think.
And all of a sudden he just disappears. He's just like gone.
Yeah. The fight's over.
Yeah.
We don't get to see, and we don't get to see people's reactions to how messed up Krupp probably looks.
So I've already talked about how I love the Chower and Ox POVs, but I forgot the Coyote POV. That was
Oh yeah, I really like the Coyote POV. That was a good POV. It kind of reminded me of that the Fox POV in Lord of the Rings, where it's like early in Fellowship of the Ring, a fox just comes on, like it comes upon Frodo and Sam and thinks, "Huh, it's weird that hobbits are out in the world today," and then it walks off, and then it's just never seen in the story again.
Interesting. I think they're fine. I mean, I don't think they're bad. They're just filling out the world. I think Char's POV is more meaningful to me than the other two, or than the Ox. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate the Ox this time. It was thematically resonant, which is good.
Yeah.
I'm not like hugely in love with them, like Huron is, but yeah, good. No complaints really.
Okay, last set of questions is from Lady Sweden. And she says, so my question's from coming out fresh off the book. Which
Are
of
you
the
just
big
gonna say her name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Last set of questions from Ladybug. I don't know. That was terrible. I'm sorry. From Ladybug. Which of the big moments in the end did you like the most? Hard to choose for me, but 3 of my top contenders are the sisterly fight, Hood's death walk through the city, or the guarding of Rake's body. We can answer that first. She has a couple more questions.
Yeah, I already said my favorite. It's when Hood says "not this time."
Yeah.
What were the choices again?
Well, I mean,
Anything's fine.
anything's
But
fine.
she gives examples. Yeah,
Yeah.
Since he took that one, I'll just take the fight and drag
you can't take the whole one.
I can't take the whole fight.
No, you
Yeah,
have to
he
pick a moment
can.
from the fight, right?
Okay,
I mean,
no, wait, no,
sure.
even more than that. Harlow and Stawny's reunion.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it wasn't when Nimander was holding Aranatha's hand for you. That was such a moment of leadership. No one else in the series could have done that, I
Oh
think.
my gosh. You too.
I don't even know what you're trying to imply.
Big moments in the end I like the most. I mean, honestly, I like the smaller moments the most, like the picker moment, delivering the message to Karsa. I did like the moment when Draconis realized what Animander was doing and was like, dude, you don't need my forgiveness. I like that. I don't know. They're kind of jumbled in my head at the moment. And I mean, like Hood bringing his army of the dead to fight chaos. That was cool. Next question. How did you feel about the pacing of the end? For me, a bit rushed, big moments, huge really, but we rushed on to other big events next, given the much slower pacing of the first parts of the book. I think we talked about this one quite a bit.
I think that specifically the rushing on from the big moments. I think it's probably also a fair criticism. Like we get a lot of build up to these events, and like with Solana, we don't see the resolution of them very much. I think it's fair to have a problem with that.
I think my main thing was it was hard for me to keep momentum like reading because we kept like cutting off to go to other POVs, and it was just like constantly rebuilding the momentum over and over again until like boom, 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 boom. There was just like, okay, finish this, finish that, finish this. I was just like, I wanted more satisfying like flow.
More compartmentalized sections. Yeah.
Last question.
I feel like I don't have to make any comment here.
No, I think we know how you feel. It's a perfect book. It's perfect pacing.
Okay, I didn't say it's a perfect book because I have had some complaints.
Okay, fine.
It was
Perfect
paced
pacing.
perfectly though.
Last question. Does this mean Whiskey Jack and all the dead people will be back, or just the wagon people? I think the people that came from Hood's realm would go back to Hood's realm, but I don't know.
But who's guarding Hood's realm now?
I don't know. They're just gonna be apparitions like everywhere.
That's sorry. That actually might have been what happened with the dead before Hood arrived, because, like in Dead House Gates, we're going through all these places where ancient atrocities happen, and there's still spirits left around, and they're in the earth.
Mm-hmm. Hearing any thoughts? Well, I guess maybe you already know.
Yeah, I don't want to answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we can find out.
I don't know. I'm okay if like Whiskey Jack and all those people are like this was their last big hurrah, and then they go back to Hood's realm.
Oh, Panda.
Yeah.
Speculation time. Picker told Karsa that he's gonna have to kill a god.
Yeah.
Any theories?
Well, I mean, the main one you would think is like the crippled god, but is that just like too obvious?
They are
I
in
feel like
Darujistan, and she told him they needed to.
well, Race isn't Darujistan. Is he considered a god?
No.
Okay. I guess Krull? Because
Hmm.
Darujistan and Krull kind of just go
Girl said
together.
Darujistan.
I mean, there's Krull's bar, right? And that's where he like regained his powers.
Okay.
But why kill him? I guess if you kill him, are they gonna kill the Warren? Okay, I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Excellent. Good.
That it?
Get hyped for the next book, Panda. This closes the metaphorical book on this continent in the series. Dust of Dreams and Crippled God are going to wrap up the Bone Hunters stuff.
Yeah, really. There's only one story left.
Yeah.
Wait, so who does Karsa fight?
You'll find out.
Yeah. So like we're gonna still have some scenes from here, but
there's a few scenes in Gennebagus.
Yeah,
not many.
The main storyline will be taking place with the Bone Hunters.
I see. Okay.
And Dust of Dreams and Crippled God is one story.
Yeah, basically.
It's published in 2 volumes for the length, but it's one story.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. We're in the
am
end game now.
Hyped. Yeah, it's this whole Infinity War Endgame situation, huh?
Yeah. Done before Infinity War Endgame. You know.
It's gone. Rake's dead.
Yeah. No one's guarding the gates of death. Chaos has been freed from Dragnipur.
Bring it.
Yeah.
In a few weeks.
And
I need a break.
After
we got stuff to do.
Yeah. Cool.
Everything that I've said in the past episodes up until now, at the end of the episode, pretend like I'm saying right now. We'll see you next time. We'll have a spoilers episode. Hopefully, we'll talk to Steve. I only contacted him yesterday, so
and Janice will be back.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Yes, and we'll be talking with AP, not about Malazan, but on his channel.
Yeah.
Cool.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye. Pew pew.
Pew 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 pew.